Thousands of scientists call on senators to pass climate change legislation as soon as possible. Also, other oil companies may be backing off, but the world's largest publicly traded company in oil... Hey, Mark, I'm sorry. I need to change the first tease. It is thousands of scientists, right? We're talking about 2,000? Okay. Because her first line says more than 2,000 scientists sent a letter to the Senate today. Okay. Yeah, that's what that's what I was assuming. So sorry about that. I should have seen that earlier. Okay. Thousands of scientists call on U.S. senators today. Their message: pass climate change legislation as soon as possible. Also, some of the other oil companies may be backing off, but the world's largest publicly traded oil company says it is full speed ahead on new projects. And a cold wind is blowing through China. The country is now cutting back on wind turbine production.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
And good afternoon, I'm Tyler Suiters in for Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for this Thursday afternoon edition of the Energy Report. The debate about climate change is far from over, of course, but more than 2,000 scientists sent a letter to the Senate today saying the debate should be over. The group is led by the Union of Concerned Scientists, and these members say the science is sound, that the climate is changing, and now the laws must change as well. In a telephone news conference earlier today, New Mexico Senator Tom Udall, a Democrat, applauded this group. He says the House has now passed a climate bill, and it is time for the full Senate to act with the entire country behind it. Senator Udall says the letter is, in his words, a call to action, showing that scientists are on the same page.
Your letter also reminds us that of the cost of inaction. As a result, our nation's climate scientists are telling policymakers the most risky thing we can do is to do nothing. And I couldn't emphasize that enough. We are ready to act here in the Congress. The House has already acted with the Waxman-Markey Act. Two of our committees, the Senate Energy Committee and the Environment and Public Works Committee, which you mentioned, have produced bills, and bipartisan discussions are underway to break through that Senate gridlock. And I think this letter is going to help break through the gridlock.
These scientists say the planet has now warmed 0.7 of a single degree Fahrenheit above pre-industrial levels so far, and the results would be disastrous if we climbed more than 3.6 degrees over that level. They say lawmakers must capitalize on the international momentum surrounding climate change and the fact that this is the first U.S. president, that is President Obama, to truly champion this issue. The executive director of the International Energy Agency says pledges made under the Copenhagen Accord, including a pledge by President Obama himself, they are not enough to keep global temperature rise in check. Speaking to the IHS CERAWeek conference in Houston today, Nobuo Tanaka said the Accord's pledges account for only 2/3 of the CO2 cuts necessary to keep the world from warming more than 2 degrees Celsius. According to Tanaka and the IEA, without any further cuts beyond the Accord, by 2050 the world's atmosphere will contain 550 parts per million of carbon, and the world would probably warm an average 3 degrees Celsius. In the Copenhagen Accord, world leaders committed to a maximum warming of 2 degrees, which scientists say means no more than 450 parts per million carbon. Exxon says it will boost spending this year on new and existing projects. This comes even as many rival companies are cutting spending amid a drop in energy demand worldwide. The world's largest publicly traded oil company plans to raise its capital spending by 3%, up to roughly $28 billion. CEO Rex Tillerson says Exxon is, quote, executing a large inventory of projects and many other areas are under development. The company says its spending should average between $25 and $30 billion annually through 2014. There is now a new front in the battle over construction over a Virginia coal-fired power plant. Old Dominion Electric Cooperative wants to build a $6 billion plant in Surry County, Virginia. That's just about halfway between Richmond and Norfolk. What the group says will be an economic boon for the area. But county officials in Isle of Wight, not far away, said this coal plant could actually hurt economic development and tourism throughout the entire region. That region is in fact months away from losing its air quality attainment status, and the Isle of Wight supervisor says the last thing the region needed is, quote, a huge polluter like a 1,500 megawatt coal plant. The Surry County Board of Supervisors and also the Dendron Town Council have approved land use ordinances for this coal plant, but Old Dominion has yet to secure more than 50 environmental permits, which will be necessary to move forward. In neighboring West Virginia, the Supreme Court has now rejected requests by a bankrupt coal company and its president to reconsider a decision stripping them of a $50 million jury verdict against Massey Energy. This long-running case involves allegations that Massey put Harmon Mining out of business by hijacking a supply contract. The state Supreme Court first overturned the verdict in 2007, but has since revisited this case twice. The U.S. Supreme Court had ordered the latest review here. The largest municipal utility in the entire U.S. is now poised to pass a 5% rate increase on electricity use. The Los Angeles Department of Water and Power says money raised would be earmarked for renewable energy purchases and programs, including a plan to repay customers or businesses that use solar panels to generate back onto the grid. LA City officials say the rate increase is equivalent to a carbon tax because all consumers will see their rates fall as the city becomes less reliant on coal-powered energy. The commission that governs this utility will vote next week on the increase proposal. Overseas now, and China is idling as much as 40% of its wind turbine factories. In an interview with Bloomberg, Shanghai Electric's vice president says prices of turbines have tumbled more than 30% from their levels in 2004 because, quite simply, there are too many plants. China set a goal to increase its power production capacity from wind 500% by 2020, spurring investment in turbine factories. But the country's power grid can't handle all the resulting renewable generation, leaving as much as 4 gigawatts of wind generation capacity idle right now. Last year, China installed more than 14 gigawatts of wind capacity, a total that was higher than that of any other country. And it is designed to withstand everything from global warming to a nuclear attack. 2 years after receiving its very first deposits, the Doomsday Seed Vault, as it's known, on an Arctic island has amassed 500,000 seed samples. That makes it the world's most diverse repository of crop seeds. It is located 620 miles from the North Pole. It is the Svalbard Global Seed Vault, and it now houses at least 1/3 of the world's crop seeds. It was opened back in 2008 as a master backup to the world's other 1,400 seed banks, an effort to protect against natural disasters that may wipe out food crops around the globe. The most recent additions include a mold-resistant bean from Colombia and also a collection of nearly every agricultural soybean species ever developed in the U.S., at least over the last century. We are getting ready to wind up the work week here in Washington. We'll take a look at a fairly light Friday schedule here in the D.C. area. First of all, 11 a.m. Eastern on Friday, the American Association for the Advancement of Science is holding a briefing in the Hart Senate Office building here on Capitol Hill. The topic, public perception, the science, and the politics involved in climate policy. Again, that is at 11 a.m. And that is this Thursday afternoon edition of the Energy Report. Thanks for joining us here in the Energy News Center. You can reach our team here in Washington anytime at contact@cleanskies.com and follow us throughout your day on Facebook and Twitter. For all of us here, we're glad you're with us. I'm Tyler Suiters, and you're watching Clean Skies News.